True stories revealed. Uncovering fascinating true stories from around the world, one tale at a time.
Dyatlov, The Night They Never Left, a bone-chilling true story, inspired by the Dyatlov Pass Incident that took place on the east shoulder of the mountain Kolotsiakhl. Kolotsiakhl, a Mansi name, meaning dead mountain. The mountain pass is in the northern Ural Mountains of the Soviet Union, which is now Russia. The location where the incident occurred has since been named Dyatlov Pass, Pereval Dyatlova, after the group's leader, Igor Dyatlov. The Dyatlov Pass Incident remains one of history's most perplexing mysteries. In February of 1959, 9 skilled hikers from the Ural Polytechnic Institute set out on an expedition into the northern Ural Mountains, only to meet their final fate shrouded in eerie uncertainty. The desolate Ural Mountains, biting through the thick snowdrifts like a blade. In the heart of this frozen wilderness, 9 hikers pitched their final camp, unaware that they were standing on the threshold of an unspeakable nightmare. They were young, bright, and fearless, students of the Ural Polytechnic Institute. Bound by a love for adventure, one, Igor Dyatlov, age 23, the steadfast leader, always guiding. 2, Yuri Doroshenko, 21, the fire starter, quite literally. 3, Lyudmila Dubinina, fierce and full of life. 4, Georgy Yuri Krivonishenko, the one who laughed the loudest. 5, Alexander Kolovov, 24, the thinker, always watching. 6, Zenaida Kolmogorova, the heart of the group. Rustem Slobodin, determined, never backing down. 8, Nikolai Thibault Brignol, the quiet strength. 9, Semyon Zolotaryov, a war-hardened enigma, the outsider among them. A 10th, Yuri Yudin, turned back early, plagued by illness. He would later call it both his greatest misfortune and his greatest stroke of luck. Their journey was meticulously documented, photographs filled with laughter, diary entries brimming with excitement, and then silence. When searchers finally stumbled upon their abandoned tent weeks later, what they found made seasoned rescuers recoil in horror. The tent, slashed open from the inside, bare footprints vanishing into the darkness, bodies scattered across the snow, some half-dressed, some with injuries no storm, no man, no beast should have been able to inflict. Something had driven them into the night. Something had made them run. The Dyatlov Pass Incident was born, and more than half a century later, the question still lingers in the icy winds of the Urals. What really happened on that mountain? The last journal entry, February 1st, 1959, northern Ural Mountains. The wind howled like a wounded animal, rattling the canvas of the tent. The temperature had plummeted below 93 degrees Celsius, but that wasn't what made Igor Dyatlov shiver. He sat stiffly at the tent's entrance, fingers gripping the ice-crusted fabric. His breath came in ragged gasps. Something was out there. He could see only swirling white beyond the tent, a blizzard consuming everything in its path. Yet through the chaos, he swore he saw movement, dark shapes shifting in the snow. Watch it. A whisper, low and distant, wove through the wind. Or was it inside his head? You should not be here. Igor's fingers tightened around his ice axe. The others were asleep, or pretending to be. He could hear Zenaida's breath hitch in the darkness. She was awake. She felt it too. Then the sound changed, no longer just the wind. A low, guttural hum pulsed through the mountains, vibrating in Igor's bones. The ground itself seemed to tremble. Rustem stirred in his sleeping bag. Igor, what the hell is that? Igor licked his cracked lips, heart hammering. Get ready to run. Chapter 1, What the Snow Hides. 10 days earlier, Sverdlovsk, USSR. The train station was alive with the energy of youth. The 9 hikers, dressed in thick wool coats and heavy boots, laughed and waved to their friends before boarding the train. Zenaida Kolmogorova pressed her face against the window, watching the city shrink into the distance. It feels different this time. she murmured. Igor Dyatlov, their leader, turned to her. Different how? She hesitated, frowning. Like we're not supposed to come back. Rustam snorted. Don't start with the ghost stories, Zina. Ludmila Dubinina, the sharp-tongued one of the group, smirked. Maybe the Mansi were right. Maybe the mountain is cursed. A heavy silence fell over them. Semyon Zolotaryov, the oldest in the group in a last-minute addition, leaned forward. You know what they call it, don't you? His voice was calm but heavy with something unreadable. They knew. Kolat Shakal, the mountain of the dead. Zina forced a laugh. Well, that's comforting. But as the train rumbled deeper into the frozen wilderness, no one laughed with her. The first warning, January 31st, 1959, the base of the mountain. The sky was iron gray when they set up camp in the valley. Their breath curled in the frigid air as they hammered the last stakes into the snow. Tomorrow, we cross the pass, Igor announced. Then we'll reach Mount Otorten. Yuri Krivonishenko huddled near the fire, rubbing his hands. If we don't freeze first. The group chuckled, but there was unease in the air. The wind carried whispers, faint, unintelligible words, like voices just beyond understanding. That night, Zenaida woke to a soft crunching sound outside the tent. Footsteps. She held her breath, listening. 1, 2, 3. Someone was walking around their camp. Slowly, she turned her head toward the tent's entrance. A shadow moved outside, barely visible through the canvas. She swallowed hard. Igor? Whispered. No response. Then, a single long scratch against the tent wall. A deep, dragging sound. Zina clenched her teeth, gripping her blanket. After what felt like an eternity, the footsteps faded. The wind returned to normal. She didn't sleep the rest of the night. The night they never left. February 1st, 1959, the final night. The storm had swallowed them whole. Their tent, battered by the wind, barely stood against the force of the blizzard. Then came the sound, a low-frequency hum, vibrating through their skulls. Zolotaryov clutched his ears. Do you hear that? Igor staggered outside, gasping. Something's wrong! They saw them then. Tall, elongated figures standing motionless in the storm, black against the white snow, watching, waiting. Then, an explosion of light. A blast of unseen force sent them reeling. Zenaida screamed as something ripped through their tent from the inside out. One by one, they ran. Barefoot, half-dressed, they stumbled into the abyss of the night. The unseen executioner. The wind howled through the pass, a shrieking wail that clawed through flesh and bone. Snow slashed across their faces, sharp as razors, blinding, suffocating. Dyatlov pushed forward, his breath coming in short, burning gasps. He couldn't stop. None of them could. Zenaida stumbled beside him, her sobs swallowed by the storm. We need to go back, find the tent, she pleaded, voice raw, desperate. Then Dyatlov saw it. A shape stood on the ridge, unmoving, watching, waiting. It wasn't human, it wasn't animal, it wasn't meant to be seen. A force hit him, not the wind, not the cold, something else. A pressure that coiled around his skull, slithered through his thoughts. His vision blurred at the edges, narrowing to a pinprick of colorless dark. His legs buckled. Then, warmth. A trickle of blood, hot against the frozen wind, slipping from his nose, his mouth. His head throbbed, splitting open with silent agony. The figure didn't move. It didn't have to. Zenaida choked beside him, a strange wet gurgle. He turned, her eyes wide, unseeing. Her lips quivered, breath coming in stuttering gasps. Then her mouth parted, blood spilled over her chin, steaming, thick. Run! Someone screamed. Maybe Slobodin, maybe no one at all. She tried to move, but something held her, something inside her. An unseen hand, a crushing grip, bone cracked. Ribs snapped inward, sharp and splintering beneath her skin. Her chest caved in. She let out a strangled cry, a sound that shouldn't exist. No one touched her. Nothing touched her. And yet, she was hurt beyond human comprehension. Further ahead, Slobodin was running, then collapsing. His body hit the ground with a lifeless heaviness, limbs swaying awkwardly. Dyatlov stumbled as a sudden, piercing pressure seized his skull. His vision blurred, breath hitching. Around him, the others faltered, one by one falling still and silent in the snow. Then came the sound, a sharp crack, a deep, unsettling crunch, not from outside, from within. The bodies lay motionless, untouched, yet something unseen had forced them down. No visible wounds, no strikes, no signs of struggle, and yet they were broken. As Dyatlov's vision dimmed, his breath turning shallow, his gaze lifted to the ridge, a figure stood there, still, watching, waiting. It had never moved. It had never needed to. Then the world faded to black. And as Dyatlov's vision faded, as his breath hitched in his throat, the last thing he saw was the figure standing on the ridge. Further ahead, Slobodin was running, then falling. His body struck the ground like a marionette, the string was severed. The others dropped, one by one, silent, motionless. Then came the sound, a crack, a sharp, wet crunch, not from outside. Something that never touched them. No bruises, no wounds, just broken, ruined bodies lying in the snow. Budis, weeks later, the search party arrives. They found the tent first. Slashed open from the inside, their belongings untouched. Then, the bodies. The silence that follows, the mountain took them by the time the search party arrived. The bodies were frozen stiff, in ways no human should be. No struggle, no footprints leading in. Only frantic, bare footprints leading out, into the dark, into the cold, into death. The official report called it an unknown compelling force. But the Mansi people knew better. They whispered of the mink, the unseen things that lurked when the sky turned black. Or maybe it was something older, something buried beneath the ice long before men walked the earth. What had they seen? What had sent them running, barefoot and bleeding? What had crushed their bones without breaking the skin? The mountain never answered.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. We hope you enjoyed the video, and we can't wait to see you again in the next one. If you found this content inspiring, please like and subscribe to stay updated with our latest releases. Your support means the world to us. See you soon!